morning, everyone. Bonjour à tous. I'm Mairead Levy, the President and CEO of Export Development Canada, and absolutely delighted this morning to welcome you to the final installment of EDC's webinar series, where we've been going in depth with one of EDC's longest-held connection financing relationships, Codelco. I'm sure you all know Codelco. In just a moment, you'll hear from Sebastian Carmona, Codelco's Chief Innovation Officer. He and his team have flown to Toronto specifically to meet with Canadian companies here at the PDAC 2020 conference. And this morning, I'm delighted to say he's here live with us to answer all of your questions. For those of you just tuning in, Codelco is the largest copper producer in the world. With over 20 active sites in both underground and open pit, Codelco is a leading prospect for most exporters in the industry. Their extensive mine operations are well suited to Canadian suppliers' expertise. And we've certainly seen that at EDC. We've worked together for over 20 years with Codelco, and the relationship continues to grow. For their part, Codelco has procured approximately $2 billion from Canadian companies since 2011, and a large part of that purchasing has been from Canadian small and medium-sized companies. Last year alone, EDC's global trade team introduced Codelco to 18 Canadian exporters, and 2 of these introductions have already resulted in signed contracts, which is pretty awesome. Thank you, Sebastian, for joining us today and for being such an important part of helping Canadian companies take on the world. I will now hand it over to Andrea Gaunt, a director in our global trade team, to moderate the session with Sebastian. Thank you.
Thank you, Marie.
Thank you, Mairead. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty excited to have our president here to kick off the event. Having said that, it's not a big surprise because, as Mairead said, Codelco is one of our most important relationships that spans over 20 years. And this event is all about helping Canadian companies grow and succeed internationally, and that's the #1 priority for us at EDC. And biggest thank you to you, Sebastian.
Thank you, Andrea.
Sebastian is without question one of our biggest champions at EDC, and he's been a huge support to us and specifically to Canadian companies looking to expand into Chile and with Codelco. He has met countless Canadian suppliers that we've recommended to him relative to their needs. He has opened doors for them, and he's helped them to navigate the oftentimes very sophisticated inner workings of Codelco. I wanted to also let you know that I approached Sebastian a very short time ago. I want to stress very. And I pretty much said, we're thinking about doing this innovative webinar series. How about we fly to your offices with a video crew? How about next week? We'll do this extensive video, and hey, you can come for the 3rd and final series at PDAC in Toronto. There might be the odd snow squall, but it'll all be good, I promise you. And in typical Sebastian fashion, he said, absolutely. He's always 100% on side with doing anything to help a Canadian supplier. The other thing that I wanted to share is that at EDC, we've been hearing from Canadian exporters for decades, and the message has been very clear, and that is that opening the doors for them and helping connect them to potential end clients is the most important thing probably that we can do for them. And so in the last 12 months, we've been working extra hard. We've heard you. We're trying to do even more to help those connections and to help position you for international success. So this webinar series, the first 2 being pre-recorded, and this is the final installment, is an example of the type of discussions that we're having in order to do more. We've also heard from many of you, this video was professionally put together, and this live Q&A will also be videotaped as well and available shortly. But we tried to do this under record time in order to have it ready for PDAC. So I think the video crew were working around the clock, and they did it in 1/3 the time they normally do. But as a result of that sort of time crunch, the last video just came out a mere few days ago, with the first one just a few days prior to that. So we heard from many of you that these executive insights from Codelco are of top importance to you. However, you simply haven't all had the time to watch these videos. So as a result of that, Sebastian, if it's okay with you, I'd like to just take the first 3 questions and rephrase some of the key topics that were shared on these videos, if you're okay with that. I think right here you're going to see that Isaac has put up the links to get on the webinar. You actually have to use these links, so we'll keep that up later today. I cannot recommend enough for you watching this. I've seen both videos multiple times. It is exceptional from two of the top Codelco executives. So take a look if you haven't already. So over to you, Sebastian. One of the first questions I wanted to ask you was, in the video series, it's Sebastian as well as Jaime Bustos, who's another key individual at Codelco. And you both speak about the major transformation that's going on and has been going on in Codelco, and that this game changer transition means that the Codelco of 10, even 5 years ago, doesn't resemble the Codelco of today and a few years from now. Can you share a little bit about that conversation?
Yes. Well, first of all, good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for coming here. I'm going to try to be as much useful as I can, appreciating the time that you're spending with me. I'm gonna first of all, I'm gonna correct Andrea on one thing she said. She said that I'm trying to promote Canadian companies, and what I'm trying to do actually is just I'm here on a very selfish mission to help Codelco, right? And I'm seeing you as the guys that are and the girls and the women and the companies that are going to help me on that. So the reason why I'm here is because I want to tell you that Codelco is open for business and that we have huge challenges going on. That's the first thing. Now, yes, Codelco, a couple of mines in Codelco have been around for more than 100 years. And all the mines are based in Chile. And these mines, with time, are getting deeper. The rocks is getting harder. The grades are getting lower. And the metallurgical composition and the way we can extract that ore is changing as well. So for us, when we are talking about 2020, is so different from 2019, and 2019 was so different from 2018. So people doesn't notice, but we are changing our processes every single day, and every single year we're facing new challenges, and we're using new technologies to try to deal with those challenges. Right now, Codelco, for example, is in a big transformation from an open pit into an underground mine in Chuquicamata, and that's going to move a mine that is 160,000 tons per day open pit into an 140,000 tons per day underground block cave operation in the north of Chile, where there's no underground experience for block caving a mile around, 1,000 miles around. So there's no support. There's no companies that are ready to help us in that challenge. So things are changing for us. There's also an environmental issue. I don't know if you have been in Chile, but Chile is a very slim country with limited resources, with landscapes, with vineyards, with human settlements. And people is not so enthusiastic about mining anymore as it used to be. So we see and we know that in 10 years we are not going to be able to use as much water as we use now. We're not going to be able to produce as much tailings as we produce now. We're not going to be able to emit as much dust as we do now. So we're also not just changing, or it's not that we need to change because of the inside, but also because of the outside, right? So we, as I said, and Andrea said correctly, we are transforming ourselves, and every single year we are changing 10% of our processes in order to be able to keep producing cash flow and adding value to our shareholders. Yeah.
Thank you. And you also talked about an open innovation concept that's really...
Yeah, this is a very important thing for Chile as well, and it's more than open innovation. If you get into any mine in Chile, not just Codelco, but private mines as well, 2 out of 3 workers are contractors, right? Our business model for running mines depends heavily on suppliers, on contractors. That's just how it is. It's different from Canada, Australia, the US. The business model in Chile is that we work hand in hand with contractors, with suppliers, with partners. That's just how we do things. In that same line, in the last 20 years, or 10 years, we changed from a close innovation and large departments of R&D, where we as Codelco try to tackle our own challenges, into an open innovation, meaning that we try not to do anything ourselves. We try to, when we talk about innovation and technology, we try to be very good at just 2 things. First, identifying where it hurts in the short term and in the long term. So we need to be very good as an identifier where it hurts. And then the second, so that we can also, and why is this important, the first part? Because so that way we can inform you and we can inform the market so that the capacities and capabilities are aligned with our challenges. And the second thing that we have to be very good at is deploying technologies. Once we have identified the solution, the way we deploy it, the way we test it, and then scale it up into our processes is very important. That's where the value is added. The value is not added in the identification, the value is not added in the early parts of the process. But when the innovation stops being an innovation and becomes an integral part of the process and improves our production, reduces our costs, improves our safety, you name it.
Now, you also talked about that, notwithstanding these two videos are insights from Codelco executives, that there's a lot of synergies and commonalities between the large mining companies in Chile, and specifically like in northern Chile. Can you speak about that?
Yes, and this is a really good news. When you talk about mining in Chile, you don't really talk about just be too generic. Mining in Chile means one thing, means large copper assets. Mostly open pit, but a few underground as well. And that's it. It's not like we are strong on zinc, silver, gold mining. No, it's copper. So, and especially in the north of Chile, but also in the south. So that means that all the top 15 assets are all very similar to each other. So we have BHP Billiton doing business there, we have Antofagasta PLC doing business there, Anglo American, Glencore. And if you go to see the mines, and you see the mine managers, they're all in the north, for example, they're all struggling with lack of water, a lot of dust, comminution problems, tailings problems, very similar to each other. If you go to the south as well, we're struggling sometimes with excess of water or impurities, or how do we handle arsenic, and there's similar challenges. So that means that if you get into one mine and find a good solution, and the chances are that solution that you were able to introduce into one of these mines is going to be useful for at least 10 other world-class assets. So there's a lot of synergies because the mines in Chile are very similar to each other.
Thank you. Another thing I found really interesting was that you and Jaime were talking about it's a bit of a balancing act. That not to be afraid to ask Codelco questions. They're happy to answer the questions. Perseverance is key. Do not just focus on one division. I mean, Codelco's huge with 8 mining divisions. It's a complicated structure. So focus on any opportunities, mine sites that might have a need for your solution, and persevere. But at the same time, given the culture in Chile, you have to be patient. Can you explain?
Yes, I mean, there are 2 or 3 things here. As I said again, the good thing is that these mines in Chile are world-class assets, so they're all huge. The problems that come with that is that we're not very agile into our decision-making, because we are meant to have a stable procedures, and our procurement process are not actually made for innovation, but they're made for reliability. So we're not agile at all. It's not like when you're doing business with a medium-sized miner here that they're focused on productivity, and they see your solution and say, I want it, give me 10 of this or something like that. We're not agile at all as big miners sometimes, right? So we in the innovation department have worked in trying to develop ways to be more agile into adopting innovation. But it's never easy. So that's the first thing. Then the second thing is the Chilean culture. We're not that good at saying no. So sometimes we're going to say yes, and then 2 months after we're not going to reply the emails, but we were too afraid to say no to your face. So sometimes we're not as straightforward as we would want to be, but that's changing also. So that's why when Andrea said you have to persevere, or maybe you have to ask me and ask me if there's, Sebastian, is there really interest? And I'm gonna try to be honest with you and give you a straight answer, because I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to waste your money on business development effort that may not be as effective as you wish. And big miners are like that. We tend to beat everything. We have like a lot of procedures, and that's all to try to ensure reliability and not innovation. So we're working on that. We're trying to improve the way we are open for business. We're trying to improve the way we we take advantage of the value that you have brought us and deployed. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult. And also, and this is the third thing, is that, as I said, these are world-class assets. But the mining industry in Chile is very concentrated in 5 companies, maybe Codelco, BHP, Antofagasta, Anglo American, Glencore, and that's about it, right? So although there's a lot of mining activity, it's very concentrated in a few mines. It's not like here in Australia where you have, I don't know, maybe over 500 mines from all the sizes. In Chile, it's very concentrated. It's a concentrated market. So, so my recollection also is that you try, and although it's concentrated, so you actually have 5 procurement heads. So you have actually 5 clients, right, on corporate level. But we're not that centralized neither. So, and this is this is what Andrea was telling us. Although, you know, you have mines, and sometimes the mines have different bottlenecks. This is important. Sometimes the mine manager is only looking for solutions for water. So even though you have a great solution, it's not the bottleneck of the operation right now, but it may be in 6 months after. So I think perseverance is the key, but also try to use these links that we have created with EDC, with MST, yes, and with the innovation departments in all of the companies, because we are here to try to make this happen. So, and we are here to help you and to help our operations, and we are like the internal brokers. I'm not the one that I'm going to fall in love with a solution specifically. I want the mine manager or the GM to really want what you're selling. It's not me, right? But I'm here to try to be a broker, an internal broker, a promoter, and a champion of innovation. So that's my role. My role is connecting you. My role is to help you succeed, because if you succeed, that means that you're adding value into my operation, and that means that Codelco is going to be able to deliver more value to the shareholders. So that's how I see the equation.
Thank you. And you're talking about timing. One of the things we do at EDC is we really try to focus on specific needs. And when we're putting together these B2B connection meetings, we really want to make sure that there's a strong likelihood that this specific need will be coming out in a bid in the next 6 to 12 months. So probably the most important question that anybody's going to ask you today is going to be why most of the people are here today, and that is your short-term and your long-term challenges. And perhaps you can talk about, you know, the differences between your long-term and short-term, and I think Isaac's going to put them up on the screen so you can at your leisure write them down if you're interested in
them. So this is a very important distinction, because it actually helps us focus our efforts, and also it dramatically changes the way we operate in short-term against long-term. Meaning that I'm going to start with long-term. Long-term means that we see our mine plans in the future, we see our life of mine, we can know how our mines are going to change, and we are able to identify a few key productivity and sustainability challenges, and we're spending money on working that out, right? And we're spending money with suppliers, but especially also with R&D centers, and with universities, research centers, as I said, large OEMs, small OEMs, entrepreneurs as well, because in that long term we're not looking for short-term value, we're not looking for annual profit, but we're looking to solve some of the challenges that we have, and to find partners that can help us working those challenges, right? So in that, the way we operate is that we do these joint JVs and collaboration agreements to develop technologies. Now we are miners, so we're not looking for royalties on whatever we develop with university center. We're looking for profits and savings in our operation. So then our partners can do whatever they want with the technology, right? But we're focusing on 7 things. As I said, these are very common, and the long-term focuses are very similar in the industry as well. So sulfide leaching, in-situ leaching, pre-concentration, ore sorting, high-trace underground mining, arsenic impurities, smelters, and water usage. In the Q&A, if you have questions, I can go and define every single one of them, right? But then when we go to short-term, that's when we need to work with suppliers. That's where we don't need to work actually with universities or consultants or expectants. When I'm talking short-term, I'm looking for adding value this year. So if you have some product and we test it for a month, and if it works, we're gonna hire it and we're gonna deploy this in as much sites as we want. And then, as I said, the short-term focuses are improving crusher and milling throughput, improving recoveries of copper and byproducts, and then something else, right? And you can see them there. And the way we measure the impact of this is that every single project that we deployed on short term, we're measuring the value that is added, so that we continue working and championing innovation. So that's very important for us to focus on the bottlenecks of the operations. And I can assure you that every single one of those 6 short-term focuses are in every single one of the GM's heads. That's what they want. That's where the bottlenecks are of the operations, right? So long-term is for the future, and that's an R&D effort, and short-term is for right now. And that's why we need you guys. We need suppliers that have already proven their technology here in Canada or in the US, and you have something that we want that may just work. We want to deploy it as fast as we can, right? So it's not about creation there. It's not about research. It's just about testing it and deploying as fast as we can, right?
Thank you. And one last question before we go to the floor. You talk about the Codelco portal and that it's critical that suppliers interested in Codelco register on there and look at it regularly to see upcoming opportunities.
So I would say that 99.9% of our procurement efforts are going through a public portal that is open for everybody, right? You can look at it in the website, and you register your company, and then you say what you're good at, and then open bids are gonna be there every single day. And that's the way you scale up things, right? That's the way you compete. But also we do have this innovation toll gates, so that if you have some solution that has an IP and that we can recognize that IP and that unique solution that you bring to the table, there are other ways of trying to get that innovation inside. But as I said, there are like 2 main gates. It's either innovation or it's either something that's already in the market that you have been successful to, and you're welcome to apply. And as I said, we're open for business, and we're looking for a competitive process in that, right? So it may not be sexy, but it's like 99%, and we buy billions, $10 billion every year on those portals. So I will highlight that as well.
Thank you. Okay, so at this point, we'll put it to the floor. We have Al Pritchard. Are you roaming around with the mic, or are we just doing...
Maybe I'll kick it off with a quick one for Sebastian. We know you see a lot of business plans and technologies that come to you from innovation, and I'm wondering if you can maybe supply 3 tips on what goes into like something that really catches your eye.
Yeah, so this is the key. Whenever I see a solution, I try and we can talk about pilots, and we can talk about testing, and we can talk about, you have this product. When I'm listening, a supplier telling me this, all I'm thinking is, how do I make money through this solution? So I'm not thinking about the success of the solution. I'm not thinking about if it's new, or is it brand, or is it automated or robotic. I'm trying to say, where do I put this into my system that can actually, and what's the minimum size that can actually make money for me, right? So we can talk about pilots, but I'm never going to waste your time thinking only on the pilot and being successful in the pilot. I'm thinking on the implementation. So the first thing is that we need to try to define, even the first conversation, how would this piece add value in my system, right? And so when I'm talking about innovation, too many people get lost in thinking about, and I know you don't want this, right? But innovation groups tend to do this. Let's do a test, let's do a pilot, let's see how it goes. That doesn't make any sense for me. All I care about is the final implementation. So I'm going to ask you the price and the value that can add that final implementation, not the testing or not the first samples of that. I want to know how will it work there, what's going to be the support that you're going to provide me now that it's working. And that's also something very important, and I want to get back to that. When I said that 2 out of 3 workers in our mine sites are contractors, that means that we cannot be left alone. That means that we expect for the suppliers not only to provide the product, but to provide the continuous support and upgrade of it. That's the way you are successful there. Because if not, we're just going to buy the robot, but we're going to have no expertise inside the organization to support the robot, to do the maintenance of the robot, or to whatever. So when we're looking at solutions, we're not thinking on products. We're thinking of the entire services. A 3-year service, and how are you going to help me if things go sour? How are you going to support me with more units if we are successful? I'm thinking about that. Right? I'm thinking about the impact that this is going to have in my organization. That would be the first one. So try to talk about the final stage of the innovation, not the beginning of the stage. And that would be the first, the second, and the third most important thing that I care about. Yeah.
So Chuquicamata, big open pit mine converting to underground. I'm wondering do you see that as a trend that's going to start happening in Chile more often? And if so, who's next?
I mean, in the next 20 years, there's no, there are bad news and good news. In the next 20 years, no open pit, like no Escondida or the mines in Antofagasta have plans to go into underground. Yeah, they still have resources and all that. Having said that, when we're talking about Chuquicamata and Teniente, we're talking about mines that combine are gonna extract more than 300,000 tons per day of ore. That means that we spend almost $1 billion every year on building tunnels and infrastructure for making those two mines, large underground mines, work, right? And that means that every single year we're building underground mines, because these underground mines that you have to build, then you extract, and then you build. So you're always going deeper and you're always expanding yourself. It's not like an open pit with a more common development, right? So I don't see new mines jumping into from an open pit into underground, but I do see these two large underground mines operating for the next 40 years, growing deeper for the next 40 to 100 years, and require more and more technology and capabilities for going electric, for 5G, for automated and remotely operations, for have ways of dealing with water, ways of improving the way we do maintenance, ways of improving the way we plan the mine, improving the understanding of the geomechanics on deep underground mines as well, improving the way we build ventilation because of the heat and diesel emissions that we have underground. So we do see that this is the trend of going deeper. It's going to mean that every time we go deeper, we're going to need to change and rethink the technology and the way we're thinking these underground mines.
That's a great question, because looking at the CapEx plans for Codelco, which is about $4 billion a year, and that's pretty consistent for many, many years, the vast majority of that $4 billion is actually geared towards their underground mines. So that plays wonderfully into Canadian expertise, where we're do very well in underground mining.
Thank you. My name is Alain, and I represent the International Forum of Business Alliances. The 6th edition will be in first week September in northern Quebec. And we would like to invite mining operators following through your short-term and long-term objectives. Mining operators are the ones that are in the delivery of specific underground or metallurgy or whatever. So we would like to invite them from Codelco. In fact, I'm in contact with El Teniente at the moment. And for them to present their challenge to a crowd of Canadian suppliers in the room, so that they can have a brainstorming in order to what best routes or angles to come up with the best solutions. So would you be in favor to support such an invitation?
Well, I'm always in favor to send engineers everywhere. As I said, 6 months ago, we sent like 5 engineers to Sudbury to look at underground mines and electric mines. Last month, I sent 5 engineers to Australia, to Cadia, to learn about block cave. As I said, this is an open world, and we're not going to find all the solutions that we want in Chile. And the only way of learning new things, and it's to improving and increasing the network that we have with you guys, with technologies that are being developed everywhere, right?
So the response is yes.
The response is contingent to a trade war between the US and China. If I still have a job. Contingent to many things, yes.
Muchísimas gracias.
Yes.
Okay, I'll stand up. Hi, guys. I'm Ryan McEachran. I'm the Managing Director for MSTA Canada. And maybe you could explain a bit, and maybe you have done in the past with the other series here, but the relationship or the interconnection of how your role, Codelco Tech, Expande, some of these things, how they all kind of connect up. Are you kind of the focal point, or are you just one of those kind of portals, if you will, into opportunities?
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, okay. Let me think about it. So I was saying that Chile is a small country, see? And there are few companies. Although there's a large mining activity, it's just concentrated in a few companies. So the first thing that you have to know is that we all know each other. So we're all the same, right? So Codelco has a technology subsidiary called Codelco Tech, and I am the chairman of Codelco Tech, so it's the same. Then we have a collaborative approach with BHP and Antofagasta in Expande Fundación Chile, which is another consortium. And I'm the representative in that thingy as well. So it's all the same. I mean, if you get in touch with somebody talking about innovation in Chile, I probably know her or him. And it's a very close group. We face similar challenges between the companies and inside Codelco as well. So I think that every single node of that network will help you at some point.
Actually, that's a great question, Ryan. And if I could just add, so Expande, as Sebastian said, is working with the 4 big mining companies in Chile, and we actually work quite closely with Expande. And they're a third-party agency that is somewhat of a sourcing agency to help Codelco, Antofagasta, BHP with similar challenges often. So they will assist with the evaluation of the bids and the release of the bids and the collection of the bids and answering questions and often going to the end client to get those questions answered. So we will receive regular challenges from Expande that are representing their clients. It could be Codelco, it could be BHP, it could be Antofagasta. And so we work very closely together. And you'll often see Expande here in Toronto to go to the MSTA forum, or they were here the last few years at PDAC, so they're very actively involved as well.
Yeah, I cannot stress enough the relevance of these agencies like EDC or the one you represent on the internal group. Because our time in the innovation department, we have limited hours, right? So we cannot take on all the suppliers around the world. There are more than 10,000 of them, right? So this little consortiums or agencies that they put together a bunch of companies, it really helps us doing our job as well, connecting and speeding up what we need with the company that can provide a solution, right?
Many of our challenges that we get at EDC within the Global Trade Group come from Expande. And I can tell you that, to Sebastian's point, these challenges that were listed there as the short-term and long-term challenges are common across all the mines. So when we'll see a challenge coming from Expande, from representing BHP, it's often the same types of challenges we're getting. Once we get those challenges and we have regular communication on sort of what we need from them in order to have sufficient information, in order for Al and his team to do the research. And this is why it's so important for EDC and the global trade team to really understand what your competitive advantages are, what you do differently than other competitors. Because when we get these challenges, we do a lot of research internally and we come up with which suppliers we feel are completely relevant and could be successful with this challenge. Because these challenges will have a bid that's going to be issued in a matter of weeks. So there's an end game contract that's going to happen. So that's really our sweet spot where we like to operate in global trade. So the more suppliers we're familiar with their competitive capabilities, many of you we know very well, but you're coming out with a new innovation. And we may not know about that new innovation. So that constant communication with our global trade team, whatever sector you're working in, oil and gas, mining, it's worth your time to have an ongoing dialogue with us.
So I have a very specific question. So last year, some of your guys came from Codelco Tech, right? And we had discussions, and Andrea knows about that. And there was a lot of back and forth. We went all the way up to the project proposal and this and that. So their idea was to, they said that, we want to move towards a fully autonomous mine, that kind of, big plan. And to get to that point, they had some specific steps that needed to be taken, right? So I'm not sure if it's still in the plans or some things have changed, because what you have shown here, the short-term and long-term goal, I don't really see those things, mentioned.
Yeah, well, if you see in long-term focuses, you have high-stress underground mining. High-stress underground mining means that we have rock bursts every time we try to have a blast, or to do a drill, or to have a tunnel, we have a blast. So underlying that effort, we have fully autonomy, we have electric mines, we have taken up completely the operator and the workers from an underground mines. As a vision, we have that. So yes, it doesn't say autonomous, because autonomy or remoteness is here we're trying to look on the challenges, not on the solutions, right? So it's just a way of expressing ourselves. And maybe it's not that clear, but to tackle that challenge of high stress underground mine, absolutely we need autonomy as a part of the solution, right? But the end game, it has to do with understanding geomechanics, with taking everybody from the underground mines outside whenever we're ready for it. It includes most of the things as a way to tackle that challenge.
Thank you. Do we have time for, you had one quick, just to add that notwithstanding we've got our short and long-term challenges here, there's lots of other challenges that are equally, that are high priority and will be on the portal for you to check. This is just sort of highlighting some of the most important ones that they're focusing on. It does not mean that your solution maybe is not important and there won't be a bid coming up. So, okay, in closing, I just wanted to highlight 3 things to take away. First off, if you have not seen these 2 videos, I cannot encourage you enough to watch them. The links, Isaac, if you don't mind putting the links up, they are, the information on these 2 videos, they're about 18 minutes each. They're exceptional. If you're looking at doing business with anybody in Chile, watch the videos. This will also be up as well as the final and 3rd video for this series. The second part I wanted to mention to you is the portal. If you haven't registered on the Codelco website, please do and check that portal regularly. And the last point I wanted to make is if you feel that your solutions are relevant to any of these challenges and you haven't had any communication with the global trade team at EDC, please see Al at the back before you leave today, and there may be some opportunities for us to do some connections for you. So thank you so much for your time. We hope it was worthwhile, and enjoy the rest of your PDAC experience.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sebastian.